Resilience is probably the defining factor in the success of an entrepreneur. Yeah, the studies are that, it's an overwhelming of percentages of people that start companies, they're out of business in 2 years because they just can't survive. The saying is that you want to work, you gotta have to work harder than anybody else for 2 years to not have to work for the rest of your life in some cases. But the thing is, you've got to be able to put the hours in, put the time in. You got to be able to go without things. A common term that we use is you have to live on a ramen budget. You have to be, I have entrepreneurs that I've worked with that their office was their house.
Yeah.
And they slept on a cot. They picked up every kind of free meal they could get. They Ubered late in the evening, so they could run their business during the day. It takes a special kind of dedication to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Out west where the sun always beams bright, Midland skies keep the hustle in sight. BAM Consultants got the blueprint intact. For dreamers on the grind, they got your back. Championing dreams from the ground to supreme, providing that spark, igniting the team. Marketing flow strategies that glean. BAM in Midland, building your dream. They teach the
Bam. All right. I am here with Mr. Scott Kelly of Black Dog Venture Partners. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome, Scott. So, hey, welcome to BAM BizTalk.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about more of what you do, what Black Dog Ventures does, and what's your background? How did you get into this?
Sure. I'll start with my background. I've been doing deals for 30 plus years. I started on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in the early 80s, moved to San Francisco, and from 86 to 93, I was an investment banker in San Francisco, taking tech companies public. 93, I became an entrepreneur for the first time during the internet boom and was fortunate to have 3 of my companies exit between 93 and 2000. So I had a good run as a founder. I retired briefly, moved to Arizona after about 6 months of retirement. I tell people I unretired successfully and started another business and ran that business for about 6 years and then sold that. And then I launched Black Dog Venture Partners. And basically, Angel, what I've been doing for the last 30 some odd years is work with entrepreneurs to fund their business, scale their business, and exit their business. So I've been fortunate to help companies raise about $5 billion. We've had 30 other companies exit in addition to my own. We've built an investor network of about 14,000 investors. And I run events around the country, both online and in person, connecting entrepreneurs to investors too.
That's amazing. So you created an ecosystem.
Absolutely. We've got a community of, like I said, about 14,000 investors and about roughly 40,000 entrepreneurs. And, we connect them through our events. We do a pitch event called VC Fast Pitch, which we do every month online. And then we do events around the country in person. We host webinars, 2 to 3 webinars a month for our community of entrepreneurs to learn about different ways to fund and grow their business.
Super cool. So most of these businesses, are they mostly like in the tech space, or is it?
A lot of them are in the tech space, but we work with companies in consumer products. We've worked with companies in healthcare and med tech, biotech. But a large majority are tech companies, but we've worked with a lot of other companies also.
Awesome. That's great to hear, because around here I'm from in West Texas, we're in the Midland, Texas, so it's oil country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you say the term startup over here, it's a little bit different, from when, the Silicon Valley or the Austins, the term different. And when you say startup, what you're really saying is bootstrap.
I think all companies start out as bootstrap at some point in time, but eventually, it's interesting. Startup is a bit of a misnomer. I think anybody who runs a small business is a startup. Some of them just grow their company and bootstrap it, and some go out there and try to, raise money to build their company and grow their company. So I think both have merits and both are great opportunities.
So to piggyback off that, like what was the gap in the startup ecosystem that you're solving?
Well, what the gap we're solving is, for some entrepreneurs, they might have a great idea. They might be a good technical founder. They may have built a good product, but there are some missing pieces. And sometimes that missing piece is the access to capital or funding. Sometimes the missing piece is access to customers and marketing. And so wherever that gap is, we try to fill that gap in because sometimes the problem is money, but sometimes the problem is something else besides money. Not having the
Mm.
proper team, proper staff, proper sales, marketing, and a way to get to customers effectively.
Yeah, that's the big problem for most business owners, right? It's filling that pipeline.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you'll find especially in tech companies, you'll have a technical founder who is a really good programmer, really good developer, and that's their skill.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, but they may not be skilled at marketing and sales and go to market management and other things that are important to be a successful company.
So what you're doing is you're just matching those founders in startup, the companies, these startups with investors, and not just investors, but it sounds like a lot of other stuff too. Like you said, the marketing and operations and
Yep.
all of that. Ah,
Yeah, investors obviously is a big portion of what we do, but the reality is that sometimes entrepreneurs don't need to raise money, and in all frankness, the vast majority of them shouldn't even attempt venture capital. So they really should just go out and bootstrap, like you mentioned. And if they want to bootstrap, we can provide them resources on how to grow their business through sales, marketing, and other relationships. But the reality is also when someone makes an investment in a company, they want that company to succeed. So we're very proactive in helping the company that gets that money deploys that capital correctly to
mm,
give the investor a good return on their investment.
gotcha. And I'm assuming like every single deal is different based on the founder and the needs. And okay, so
Every
maybe
single
yeah, every single one's
every
like being a
single
win.
one's different. Yeah, there's no cookie cutter approach. It's a custom opportunity every time.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. That right? It's like, okay, well, investors, yeah, they're investing, they just get money, right? So it's either a money transaction or it's a money and a support, mentorship type dynamic that carries on, and sometimes it's services with that money, direction. Hey, let us direct you, and sometimes there's equity involved, and sometimes there's not. Correct?
Exactly. What we try to do is I tell, our motto is to solve problems and create opportunities. And sometimes that's solved by money, and sometimes that's solved by something else. And so we find out what that need is, and then
Yeah.
we help the company that need.
Awesome. Yeah. You said you do online, so you have investors from across. Is this a nationwide, global?
Yeah,
What's
we have investors from, quite frankly, from around the world. We actually our online events typically have anywhere from 15 to 30 investors, and they are from all over the world and all over the country. We do an online VC fast pitch event. From the day of this podcast, or we have one 2 weeks out, and we do this every month. Our in-person events probably a little more regional and focused based on where they are. But yeah, we have investors around the world, and we work with companies around the world.
and companies around the world? Okay, that's amazing. I love the fast pitch, the VC patch fit. So can you run us through a scenario of what that looks like?
Exactly. So I started running these pitch events about 14 years ago because I wanted to make sure that if an investor is going to take the time and effort to prepare and pitch in front of investors, one, they're prepared, and two, they're actually talking to actual investors. So,
Mm,
what we do is we do coaching for them, and they do a pitch, 5 minutes exactly. And I tell the entrepreneurs, this is kind of like your first date. You're not necessarily like Shark Tank, got to get a check after your presentation. But what you want to do is you want to give the investors enough information to want a second call. And that's what we truly accomplish. And so we really hit on some high profile pieces of what investors want to hear. They want to know what the problem you're solving and why it's a problem worth solving. They want to know your solution to the problem and why it's the
mm.
best solution. They want to know how you make money. They want to know how you're going to reach customers. They want to know about your team and why they're the best to execute on this vision. And then they want to know how much money you need and what you're going to do with it.
That's great because my next question was like, advice would you give the founders about building long-term investor relationships, not just
That's a
closing on the
really
first deal? Yeah.
that's a really good question because I have entrepreneurs that come to me all the time and saying, Scott, I want to raise money for my company. When should I start? I tell them 6 months ago because investors are about relationships. You
Hmm.
need to build, it's like any sales relationship. You have to, build a qualified list of investors. meaning that's investors that invest in your industry and invest in your stage of growth. And then you need to establish a relationship with them over time. The biggest mistake a lot of these entrepreneurs make when they're trying to raise capital is, they may go on LinkedIn and see someone that says venture capital or investor on their LinkedIn profile. They follow them, connect with them, and then they immediately put a pitch deck in their inbox. And that is the fastest way to get to zero. And so it's a relationship based, business like anything else. So I tell investors, before you ask for money, ask for advice. Get to know these investors. Maybe offer to help them in some regard. Maybe, forward their information to people, share their content, establish a relationship with them first, because this is still a relationship business. People are going to, the vast majority of investors are going to invest in somebody they know and someone they like. And the best way to get those two things accomplished is to establish a relationship with them first.
That's great advice. Yeah, because we often forget the human factor.
Right.
Because we're after a goal. We're trying to hit a metric. We're trying to hit a number. We're trying to, set all these, accomplish these things that we set forth. And then we forget that on the other side is a human. Right?
Exactly.
It's just like us. It's the development of like the emotional intelligence aspect of a business. You know that in today's world, distraction is the enemy. The Deep Flow formula fuses human performance mastery with AI integration, helping you cut through the chaos, sharpen focus, and get more done in less time. In just one workshop, you'll learn how to turn stress into a repeatable rhythm of high performance, boost your creativity, and achieve clarity on demand. This isn't theory, it's a framework you can apply immediately. Call BAM Ventures, your business sidekick, at 432-247-8841 to step into your flow today.
This episode of BAM BizTalk is brought to you by Flash Mobile. Whether you're managing your business, chasing your dreams, or just handling life on the go, Flash Mobile gives you nationwide for GLTE coverage. No contracts and total freedom, all at a price that makes sense. Activate your plan in minutes. Bring your own device. Stay in control wherever life takes you. Contact us and make the switch today. And now let's get back to today's show.
Right. Hey, Scott, what would you say that one of the most, and I know you mentioned something there, but what's the most common mistakes you see entrepreneurs make when they are pitching?
Well, one was the first I mentioned, is not start with the list. Keep in mind, entrepreneurs have to understand this is a numbers game. You could hear potentially hundreds of no's. So the first, thing to do is understand, like any sales process, you need a lot of qualified leads. Meaning you need to probably 100, 200 investors that you have done your research on. I think that's the mistake. Number one is not starting with enough people to get through all the no's. That's number one. Number two, like I mentioned before, don't just throw something in someone's cold email. It may work 1 out of 1,000 times, but the other 999 times you're just going to annoy that person. So I would avoid that. And then you need to be prepared ahead of time. You need to make sure you have all your documentation ready to go, from a pitch deck to your deal room, your due diligence. You have to be ready to hear a no, but you need to be ready if you hear a yes.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice, right? Like, assume the sell, assume it's going to happen, and hey, no, okay, not right now, next one, right? So what would you mentioned a lot of it right there, when a founder, whether, the investor's evaluating whether the founder is investment ready, right? A lot of, like in the banking world, they're the 5 C's, right? Character, capital, yada, all the 5 characteristics. What is there something that investors from the investor side are looking at besides having, all your documentation ready? What are they looking for?
Well, I could tell people, you mentioned, what it says in banking and real estate, that the common phrase is location. And in raising capital, investors want to hear traction. They want to know that you're moving forward. They want to know that you're building a business. They want to know that your business could probably survive and thrive without them, but it could just do it faster with them. And I think those are the things that, make an entrepreneur talk to an investor from a position of strength, meaning that they're growing the business. So I think, because the reality is sometimes you may hear no. Sometimes you may hear yes. Sometimes it may be not yet. And what not yet means is an opportunity to continue to update them with traction and see if they can come around.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, it's amazing. So I'm going to transition a little bit here, and I want to ask you, what do you see in the next 5 to 10 years in the funding landscape?
Well, obviously, the big buzzword today is AI, intelligence. And in terms of investing, it really is doing a number of things. One, a lot of larger funds and venture capital funds and private equity firms, they're using AI tools to do due diligence to figure out these companies before a human even talks to them. So obviously that plays into it. I think the trends are going to be more towards how companies, not necessarily building new AI technology, but how they can properly utilize AI
Mm.
to make their businesses more profitable with less expense and bigger growth. And those are the trends that are looking at now. I think the investing landscape is always changing and it's always dynamic. And I've been there. I've been investing and involved in startups since before the internet. A lot of things have changed, and I think the biggest trends going forward is how technology is moving so quickly that entrepreneurs have to be ready to adapt to build their companies quicker, more efficiently. The days of having to have 50 to 100 developers and engineers is almost gone.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
have a one or two project managers and have the rest done through AI, coding, and other technologies. So I think entrepreneurs have to be better savvy about how they grow their business. But investors are using, things like artificial intelligence to determine what to invest in and how to analyze private companies too.
Yeah. AI is definitely flipping everything upside down on its head. And so as soon as Chat GPT 3.5, that's when I got involved in it, when they released it, and instantly mind blown. I was overwhelmed with work at the time, and I had to get something done, a contract done. It's just a simple rental agreement, so it wasn't too big a deal, but I needed to get it done. And I said, okay, well, let me try this ChatGPT thing out. And I just kind of put in the terms, what I'm looking for, and then lifting my finger off after hitting enter, it's already populating
Mm,
and it's structured, title, sectioned out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is life changing. This is amazing. All I do is go in and make a couple of corrections and updates and tweaks, and we basically had a working document.
exactly.
So yeah, I can definitely see, especially on the investor side, how they're using AI to help them in the decision making
Mhm.
process. So you do a lot of coaching. Is that
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot of my work is coaching with the entrepreneurs because the reality is we have to get them prepared to talk to an investor. I think entrepreneurs can't wing it. They have to make sure you have their
Mm,
story right. They have to make sure they have a good pitch deck, which is a graphical description of how they're going to grow their business. They have to have their due diligence ready to go. They need to understand all the terms that you may hear from investors and have an understanding of what the things they're looking for. So it's a lot of coaching. We had an entrepreneur that we began working with just a couple of weeks ago, and I put him on a couple of softball calls with investors just so he can kind of get some practice. But he was talking to actual investors
yeah.
because it's a grind. Raising money is not an easy job, and you need to be prepared. To make the most of every opportunity.
Man, 100. That's great. That's an amazing thing you're doing here, Scott. And you've been doing it for quite a while, so it's great to see. And especially, what got me is like you've been doing this since before the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really a tool. So right there, when everything was in your in your hands, right? It was paper. We had phone calls, right? There's emails, and we could communicate. But how it's advanced, and then AI coming in as a huge wave on top of that, that's changing the landscape. It's great to see that you're eating your own dog food, right? You're going along with it. A couple weeks ago, I wrote a blog that's talking about AI and how the new skill set is not just AI, but learning how to learn. And with AI, being our tool to learn now. It's not a crutch, it's a ladder, it's a bridge. And, I tied it to, Darwinian, the theory of Darwin and evolution. And it's not the strongest, but it's the most adaptable. Can you adapt? Can you learn how to learn? Can you unlearn how you've been learning?
Right. Right.
You know?
And it's just to say that because, I'm 61 years old and it took me a minute to kind of get up to speed. I had to learn quickly. I had to be able to understand these tools because, the new entrepreneurs I'm talking with are using them and are developing them, and the investors we interact with are investing in them. So it's, it's going to be a big change for a lot of people, more so for probably older entrepreneurs, but it's the wave of the future. You have to go from, putting the horseshoes on a horse to driving a car to, being on a rocket ship. It's a transition that entrepreneurs always go through.
Yes. Yeah, that's the core determining factor of entrepreneur, right? It's the risk taking ability,
Right.
the ability to put it all on the table.
Yep.
So in that vein, what role can you speak on the role that resilience plays in leadership, and how you build that?
Resilience is probably the defining factor in the success of an entrepreneur. The studies are that, it's an overwhelming of percentages of people that start companies, they're out of business in 2 years because they just can't survive. And you have to understand it. This is one of these things. The saying is that you want to work, you got to have to work harder than anybody else for 2 years to not have to work for the rest of your life in some cases. So but the thing is, you've got to be able to put the hours in, put the time in. You got to be able to go without things. A common term that we use is you have to live on a ramen budget. You have to be, I have entrepreneurs that I've worked with that their office was their house.
Yeah.
And they slept on a cot. They picked up every kind of free meal they could get. They Ubered late in the evening, so they could, run their business during the day. It takes a special kind of dedication to be successful as an entrepreneur.
Yes, sir. And it's that story of the 3 feet from gold.
Yep.
Just pushing, and you're just right there, and then you quit. I bet you see that a lot, huh?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that book. I actually know the author of that book, so it's really interesting you mentioned that. It is. I can tell even in sales in sales it takes typically 6 times asking to get to a yes, but the percentages go down to single digits of people that ask that many times, and so you have to have that ability to go the extra mile. It's like if you want to be a world-class athlete, you've got to put in the time and effort that others won't. And the same is true in being an entrepreneur.
100%. I just slept in my office floor last night, so I know it all too well. The thing with me though is I love that.
It's funny you say that. Me too. I've been doing this for several decades, and I live in Florida now. I moved out to Florida 3 years ago, which I thought was going to be my retirement, and I tell people I've unsuccessfully retired twice. Because I just love the grind. I love working with other entrepreneurs. I love to see growing, and I told my fiance, what am I going to do?
Right.
But I'm a terrible golfer, so I might as well keep building. So.
Yeah, I love that too, because I really don't see myself retiring. I'll take some nice breaks. Get out, get some sun and sand, and just enjoy life.
Crypto inflection point. The rise of infrastructure over speculation and hype. Money doesn't wait. Neither should we. To most, crypto still feels like a speculative sideshow. But quietly, the story has changed. But the noise is fading, and what's emerging beneath it is more serious and far more powerful. We're now entering crypto's infrastructure era. Infrastructure, the hidden engine of every revolution. Real breakthroughs do not go viral. They are not superficial. They go deep. That's the inflection point crypto is at right now. With all this information on the importance of necessity of sound infrastructure in mind, you might be wondering, who's building for this moment? Enter Texacoin, TXC, a script-based mineable layer 1 blockchain that reflects everything this infrastructure moment is about. TXC is not a speculative play. It is designed as infrastructure-first protocol engineered for performance, accessibility, and decentralization. The vision is simple. Establish the base layer through distributed mining across the state of Texas and empower Layer 2 builders to create real applications with utility beyond speculation. Anchor the ecosystem in people, not centralized validators, antiquated institutions, or gatekeepers. Join the conversation. The Black Gold Energy community meets every Monday evening, both in person and virtually. Texacoin is gathering momentum block by block, and we are the movement in the Permian Basin. Want to learn more? Bring your curiosity, skepticism, or questions to one of our weekly Monday night meetups, 6 to 8 at BAM headquarters. Or join virtually. The Google Meet will be in the event description. It's not a pitch, it's not a crypto meetup, it's a table for builders, thinkers, and doers. It's open to anyone with the curiosity to explore.
There's only so much of that you can do.
Agreed. I'm from New York. I have an A-type personality. I got to keep going. To this day, I'm still up at 4:30 in the morning. I'll jog for an hour in the morning, and then I'm into it every day. So.
At it. Yeah, so 30 years, that's something to talk about, right? Because you see, there's all these online influencer gurus, wake up at 3:33, jump in the ice bath and, do a 10-mile marathon and, meditate for 3 hours. And then at 7 o'clock, you can have lunch,
Yeah.
What's routine? Is it
my routine is pretty similar. I get up before dawn, and that's where I can do a couple of things. I'll probably get up around 4:30 in the morning. I will just, quite frankly, meditate for a little bit in my comfortable chair and just kind of slowly wake myself up. Then I lace up my sneakers, do a run for a little bit, go in, take a shower, go through which is, quite frankly, hundreds a day, plow through them, get my inbox somewhere close to zero. Never do when I get close. And then I'm on the phone. My is on the phone with entrepreneurs or on Zoom calls with entrepreneurs and investors. That's my day. And I'll do that from, roughly 7, 8 in the morning until roughly 5 in the afternoon. And then obviously I just relax after that. So,
yeah. How important would you say that having a routine is to being successful?
I think a routine's important because it allows you to be focused. If you're focused on a goal, then you do the same thing over and over again. And again, I'll go back to, being a world-class athlete. They do the same thing every time to train. They have muscle memory going about how they are doing certain parts of their athletic sports or, whatever it might be, and the same thing for an entrepreneur. I have a very large following. I have, literally tens of thousands of people, I know and have done deals with over the last 30 years, but I'm on LinkedIn and connecting to new people every morning. I always refill, the network. My network is my net worth. I get paid because of the people I know and the relationships I've built. And so I'm doing that. That changed. Not a day goes by that I don't introduce myself to someone new. And I think those are the things you have to do because, it's the routine helps maintain the focus and it keeps you structured. And in the world of entrepreneurism, especially if you're a solopreneur and if you're working at home, there's all kinds of things that can distract you.
Yeah.
So having that focus and having that routine, it keeps you on task and keeps you, prepared to move forward.
100%. Yeah. I'm working from home during and I'm trying to work, but then there's these dishes, in the sink calling me, I never really wanted to address them before, but now all of a sudden I'm at home and, distraction. It's so easy to chase the shiny objects,
Exactly. It's sometimes doing the simple things make you feel accomplished, but you just have to decide, do you want a successful business or you want clean dishes?
Right. It's, the two pass,
Yep.
You take the one less taken. That's the hard one. That's the one entrepreneur, the lasting impression. I'm sure there's a couple, but if you can choose one to talk about,
my favorite story to tell is I worked with two entrepreneurs, and they presented at a pitch event I hosted in Phoenix, Arizona, maybe 10, 11 years ago. There were two entrepreneurs. They pitched their startup idea for 1 minute, 1 minute. And
Wow.
then during the lunch break at the event, they met with an investor who invited them to their offices in California. And at that dinner meeting, a few weeks later, that investor gave them a check for $270,000. And then a few years later, that same investor led a $3 million round for the company. And then a few years later, the company, that startup that pitched for 1 minute, sold their company for nearly nine figures. And now that entrepreneurs run an investment firm called Space Station Investments. That now they went from being an entrepreneur to being an investor in entrepreneurs. So they went full circle, and that was
Yeah,
really rewarding. And
I
I
like that.
love to tell that story because it's they everyone thinks that things can happen in a minute. You just don't know.
Mm.
Um, and they were prepared for that 1 minute, and that 1 minute changed the trajectory of their lives.
Yeah, yeah. No, that just we're all just like one decision away. You
Yep.
know, one moment, one experience, 1 minute. Um, because it's hard enough to pitch with 5 minutes. It's hard enough to tell your story. What is it? Einstein said, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't understand it well enough, to
Right.
know the material. So to be able to tell your entire concept in basically an elevator pitch, you
Yep.
know, with
I tell entrepreneurs you need to have a 1 minute presentation, a 5 minute presentation, and a 20-minute presentation. And don't just have them memorized, have them internalized. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that, don't do it with notes. Do it without it being a slideshow. Be able to just talk about it because you're passionate about it and because you've done your homework and you know what you're doing. One of the biggest mistakes had, and an entrepreneur, he presented at an event and the entrepreneur stood up in front of the room with cue cards. After roughly less than 30 seconds, one of the investors said, sit down and come back when you can tell your story without cue cards.
Mm,
You got
yeah,
to be ready. You always have to be ready.
stay ready, right? You gotta stay ready and stay hungry.
Exactly.
And if you're on a ramen diet, you hungry.
I ate a lot of ramen in my earlier
You
days.
can make a masterpiece with some ramen, man. Full course cuisine. So it's kind of along with that particular example. What sectors, what industries right now? I know you mentioned AI and technology, but what sectors are you really excited about?
I think the things I'm really excited about are obviously AI, cybersecurity, and data privacy are huge problems, even more so than they've
Yeah,
been for decades now. I'm very excited about the advances in healthcare and medicine. I interviewed an entrepreneur. I have a podcast where I interview venture capital funds, and they're developing medicines in space
yeah,
because people age faster and differently in space, and they can diagnose things faster in space. It's phenomenal what they're doing.
yeah,
And I think they are building solar panels on the moon, and they have satellites that are taking the power from the sun and lasering it down to power stations. So I think the
wow,
biggest trends to look out obviously are AI, cybersecurity, healthcare, and health tech. Obviously, all of them are going to be run by data centers and energy.
yeah,
Power is the new air.
yeah,
It's always going to be that important. You're finding major technology companies buying power plants just to power their data centers. So I think there's a lot of things that are on the horizon. But I think, many years ago, someone told me that the all the information, the history of the world changes every 270 years. And I think recently someone said it changes almost monthly now. The information, the history of the world. And those are some
wow.
industries that I'm excited about and the ones we are, actively pursuing.
Yes, no, 100%. Because the way it's changing is because technology is changing everything. And we don't even know what we don't know about what's coming, but we can
Right.
see there's a huge shift undergoing. But I'm glad you brought up data centers, energy and power, right? So I'm here in oil country, and that's energy, right? Where we talk about energy, oh, oil, right? It's energy. And then in Texas, where the grid isn't the best,
Mhm.
Like there's some issues there, right?
Yep.
So bringing in data centers that obviously consume large amounts of energy, um, and then but you said there's some companies like buying nuclear, right? There's
Right.
nuclear is coming back online, which is something in my opinion we should have been bringing back a long time ago.
Hmm.
But it is a problem, one, to get past the perception of nuclear. I think we're kind of growing out of that slowly. It takes a little
Hmm.
too long for my taste, but I think we're growing out of that, and I would like to see that happen with the data centers, with these new AI. With that's because that's what the AI uses, right, to store.
Sure. They are using more energy at one data center than that is used in an entire city. It's I was asked about, I think it was 2 years ago, with AI, everyone said, "Oh, should we invest in chips and data center?" I said, "No, invest in energy." And the consumption of power is unprecedented, and it's only going to get more. And so the ability to more creatively, develop and utilize energy, is really going to be the crux of, how data centers, technology, and AI, develop, over the long term.
Entrepreneurs and small business owners, are you searching for ways of taking your business to the next level? BAM is your answer. We specialize in crafting high-performance marketing strategies that put your brand front and center, right in the palm of your customers' hands. Not only can we create a premium website full of features that optimize your social media and digital marketing presence, but we ensure that your brand gets multiple views from your target audience and even those visiting your competition. BAM is your go-to solution in the Permian Basin. But we're not just about digital and social media marketing. We're a one-stop shop offering a spectrum of services, including business mentorship, strategic planning, market research, and access to capital. That's right. We can get you funding to expand your business. With BAM, you're not just getting a service, you're gaining a partner committed to your growth for the life of your business. So why wait? Kickstart your journey to success today. Call us to set up a free consultation and discover how BAM can help your business soar above the rest. 432-247-8840. Call today and get your business launched.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. It starts off and it because AI is consuming so much of the energy, but that's just because it's coming into a world that's already antiquated at a certain point. It's
Right.
old, right? We're using old technology, and the new technology is being birthed from within it. So
Hmm.
that new technology, I believe, will be able to figure out how to utilize energy better, help itself manage itself better. And now just saying that out loud, that kind of leads to the doom of where we see AI, right? The Terminator series and the Matrix, and I don't know if you knew this, but the Terminator and the Matrix, and there's one other movie I believe, but they were all part of the same series. The author originally wrote it. They just broke it up into different.
Hmm.
That kind of blew my
Right.
mind.
Well, it is interesting how, the science fiction of yesterday is the science fact of today.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my grandmother, she used to love. My grandfather used to love to watch 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And Jules Verne, when he wrote that, there was no such thing as submarines
Oh
when
yeah.
he wrote it. But
Yep.
very soon we're having
Yep.
we got submarines.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I was a big Star Trek fan, and I always remember they asked, I think it was Gene Roddenberry, I guess the producer of it. They used to have the sliding doors to go from one part of the bridge, of the ship to the other. And someone said, "Hey, I developed the sliding doors, but they don't go fast enough." And he responded, "Oh, we just have two guys in the back sliding the door open." So the reality is, they inspire someone to come up with the technology to do that. So
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. And they had the phones, right? The communication, the comms.
yep,
Not
yep,
like Steve Jobs. So many decades later. Hey, well, let's put the buttons on the screen. What? Yeah,
yep,
Star
for
Trek.
sure.
Put the buttons on the
Yeah.
screen. It's a imagination to and I think that's where we're at. We're at a place to where we're learning to use our imagination. Uh,
Well,
and
and,
that's what's
and, I, and
pushing.
I think that's the genesis of entrepreneurship, is somebody imagining something being better for people or for us, and developing that. So I think every great entrepreneur starts with a great imagination of how they can take a problem and solve it better. And I think that's what I love about working with startups is that they come up with these ideas and they can be inspired by their own lives, or the lives of somebody else, and they say, "Good, this is not the right way to do it. I'm going to imagine the right way to do it, and then I'm going to build that way to do it better."
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, that's beautiful. I love that. Scott, we've talked a lot here. Really appreciate going through what it is, what you do, and how you help founders. We talked about how the relationship really with investors is crucial, and it's the human side of an entrepreneurship. There's the innovation, the imagination aspect, technology, how it's changing everything, and where we're going. We talked about where the space is going in the next 5 to 10 years. Could you give us one piece of advice to entrepreneurs or first-time founders that are listening in right now? What's one piece of advice you would?
Don't give up. I think I tell my boys that when they were training for sports. You don't succeed by giving up. You succeed by keep going. And I think for the entrepreneur, a lot of the entrepreneurs listen to this call. They may be at the end of the rope, but they also may be one phone call away from being successful. So my piece of advice: don't give up.
Pick up the phone, get off the seat, get out, shake hands. And if
Leave
there's what's that?
Leave the
Dishes dirty. Yeah, leave them dishes dirty. That's awesome, man. Well, hey, Scott, how can people who are interested in getting in your ecosystem, how can they get a hold of you? Where they can find you?
Sure. Yeah, there's a few websites you can go. You go to blackdogventurepartners.com to learn about what we do for entrepreneurs. If you want to learn more about our pitch events, you can go to vcfastpitch.com. You can find me on all social media channels. My handle pretty much anywhere is Black Dog CEO. So if you go to LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, if you plug in Black Dog CEO, you'll find me there. And then if you want to reach out to me via email, it's scott@blackdogvp.com.
Awesome. Incredible, Scott. On the Fast Pitch, I know you do webinars and you do them there. You're in Arizona?
Actually, I live in Florida now. I just moved here about 3 years ago.
And where you hold the person?
Well, the in-person event we do around the country. We're actually them in New York, California, Florida, DC. We've the events at locations around the country, and even some up in Europe. So,
you know what? I didn't Texas in there.
We have. Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. We have done a few events in Austin, and we do have an event in Dallas coming up in the first quarter of next year.
Awesome. Yes, this is a beautiful place. I invite you out here to West Texas, and we can put something together out here. Let's talk. Love to make that happen.
Let's do it. I'm happy. If someone gives me a room, I can take care of the rest.
There we go. We can do that. Well, all right, Scott. I appreciate you very much, sir. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and your time with us here at BAM BizTalk.
Thanks for having me, Angel. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We'll talk soon, Scott. You have a good one.
You too.